Hi, creative friends. This is Soraya, and thank you so much for being here. So, what I did last night is I did put a layer of my ink chalk paint. So this is the equivalent of Payne's Gray. It's called ink, and it's very, very dark. It's a luscious, luscious color. And I put on a glaze on the bowl. So a glaze is just like a really watered down wash. I put it down, I allow it to completely dry, then I go back in and I put another glaze on, and so on and so forth. And that, by doing that, you're really building luminosity and light. And if anybody's interested, I can explain more about glazing. It's just a technique, and they say that the way the eye actually perceives color is very similar to the way glazing happens. Like, it's layers of color. It's not like putting one solid coat of color, but they're just lots and lots of layers of color. Because what happens is, I don't exactly understand the whole scientific reason behind it, but it's a way of having the light shine through, and so you can create luminosity. And another thing I did is I fixed the top of the bowl, the ellipse, and I think that was it. So I did not record that. I was working like really late at night, and I didn't record it. But that's about it. So other than that, everything is completely dry, and I'm just gonna dive right in. Now, a couple of things I want to point out, just to reiterate my points, is that this jar over here is off in the distance. Not like a landscape. It's not like really far, like set like really far back, but it's behind the apple. So I don't want to put as much detail on this jar as I do on the apple. And generally, like, when I'm doing a still life, I try to pick like one object that's the focus of the piece. And generally, I just love drawing apples. I love drawing and painting apples and lemons and bowls and fabric. It just calms me down. And there's a whole history of the still life and what it means symbolically and what it represents, etc., etc. And I just love the tradition of the still life. So anyways, I'm sorry, I got off tangent there. But, I want this apple to be the main focal point. So I'm going to put the most color, the most details on this apple. And also it's like I'm pulling the apple forward as well. So I put in a lot of my shadows, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use lighter colors and values to pull parts of the painting that I want to like come forward, because as you can see, like, there's a lot of luscious darks going on, which I absolutely love, 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 by the way. So that's the way I do it, is I put my darks first, and then I'm trying to pull parts of the painting forward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the bowl and the apple. I'm just going to go back and forth. I'm probably going to work on the fabric as well. And I think I'm just going to pretty much leave this jar as is, because like I said, I want that jar to be sitting, in the background. So what I am going to do is I am just going to, like, put parts of the bowl that are gonna come forward. And I made a video on the sphere as opposed to the circle, and the bowl is a three-dimensional object, so there are going to be parts that are going to recede, and there are going to be parts that are going to be, they're going to curve. So, and it's the same with the apple, actually. And actually, it's the same with the jar. The jar is a cylinder, but it's the same principle, because it is a three-dimensional object. So all I'm doing is I'm just like building up some just delicious color feels. But I'm also very cognizant of my values, because the parts of the bowl that are going to be like forward, I want that to be a lighter value. But I still don't want it to take away from the apple, because the apple is going to be the main focus. And it helped you guys, well, it helps me anyways, if I look at things as color fields and I don't look at them as objects. Like, I just want to go, hey, I want to put a lighter value on, you know, this part of the bowl, and I want the sides to be a darker value. So I'm not looking at this as a bowl. I'm not looking at this as an apple. Now, because this part of the page is like fabric and I want this to really like be pulled forward, I'm gonna go with a lighter value. So I'm just gonna, oops, I want that shadow over there. And I'm just gonna kind of like smush it in like this. And once you get really good with your values, you guys, you can really have so much fun with the colors you use. Like, you can use like really interesting colors in your shadows. And I have seen some paintings that are just so delicious. Like, the shadows are they have like violets and light greens, and it's just so interesting. So that's what I'm doing with my 100-day project, is I am trying to strengthen my values. And even when I made the collages, you know, those little, like these little bits of collage pieces here, these mini collages, that was one of my main things, is like, I want to you know, strengthen my values. So what I am doing is I am building up my apple here. And as you can see, you guys, all this is now is like, I'm, you know, pulling stuff because I've already done a lot of the push stuff. Now, the thing is, there is this yellow over here, which I don't think I'm going to keep because, I don't know, I may. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. I'm not going for like any kind of photorealism. Like, if you're setting up your still life and, you know, you're setting up your lights and you're wanting to paint light, like the Dutch masters were really good at this. And you know, the master of all masters was Rembrandt. He actually didn't paint anything but light. Like, you know, it's not that he was painting a person or painting a still life, he was painting light. And that's what the Dutch masters, they were so good at that. They were actually painting light. So what I mean by that, let me explain this in a different way. So in, you know, when he would set up like a bowl and an apple and whatever, you know, a flower or whatever, he's not really painting those objects. He's actually depicting light, which, as you can imagine, is like a very difficult accomplishment. And they did it like they were masters, you know. And Rembrandt is just Rembrandt. I mean, nobody can touch him up to today, in my opinion. So yeah, you know, when you're setting up a still life and you're like doing all of those things, then of course you have to worry about the way the light is going to hit and all this other stuff. I am not doing that. I'm just, you know, doing a very kind of a painterly kind of a still life, and I'm just making all this up in my head. So I'm not really, you know, I'm not like really setting everything up, because there's no way I could depict a realistic portrayal of a still life without setting everything up and working off of it. Like, I cannot do that. I don't know if there's anybody who could do that. That's why, you know, throughout history, even the masters, they would all set up their still lifes, because you need to see, like, how is the light gonna hit this particular object? Like, you know, you have to set it up. So I'm not doing any of that. And it takes, you know, it takes a lot of the, I guess, like I have more freedom, I guess. So all I'm doing is I'm just kind of going like so. And remember when I said like you have so much leeway with when you're doing still lifes, because like you can make this bowl like any color. Like nobody is gonna be like, oh well, you know, like why is this bowl like all these weird colors? Well, maybe it's, you know, a certain material that's reflecting light in that way, or maybe it does have all those colors. Like there's just so much leeway, and it really does take a lot of the like the pressures off, as opposed to say when you are you know, painting a figure, because you don't have as much leeway. So I'm just gonna add like some lighter colors here. So as you can see, you guys, what I said about a color field is that, you know, there are so many different colors in objects. Like it's not just one color, but still, I'm gonna read this as a red apple, you know, even though like I'm putting all these different colors here. And I'm just gonna use my and I think I probably do want a little more red in the mix here. So I hope you see how I'm like just building up my apple, and I'm just building up, you know, just the layers. And I'm gonna take some of this red and I'm just gonna drop a little bit of it into the bowl, just because I want it to kind of, you know, just for continuity, like I just want to keep the eye moving around. And what I am going to do over here is, I don't usually use titanium white, but I think I'm going to use a little bit of titanium white just on the very front of the fabric here. And what I could do, you guys, is I could leave it as is like this, and you know, just let it dry and call it a day, or I can keep on working it. And the thing about still lifes for me is I do not like it to be too tight and stilted. Like if that's what you're doing, that's totally fine. But I don't like that. I like it to have like more of this like kind of, you know, like painterly kind of a feel to it. And that's just a personal preference. See, and I'm just gonna kind of like put that, and then what that's gonna do is, because it's like the whitest of white, you know, in terms of the value and the color, it's gonna pull this whole thing forward. So this is gonna read as the front of the cloth. And you know, I could leave the rest of the cloth, or I could just go in and I could just kind of like just go like so. And this is going to read as a white cloth, even though I'm using like different colors in here. The eye is going to do the mind is going to do a lot of the work, you guys. Like, you know, like I was explaining, let's see here. So like I was explaining about a color field, there are so many different colors in here, but the mind is going to read that as a red apple. Like it's not going to look at it and go, oh, well, there's like, you know, there's blue here and there, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's not going to do that. It's really not. Like you're just going to look at it and you're going to see a red apple. And if you really look at things, you know, just like look at a sweater or look at anything in nature or whatever it is, you're going to see that, you know, things do have a lot of different shades and values and blah, 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 because the light is going to hit the object differently. So light creates a lot of these like differentiation. Like if you take a red sweater and put it in the bright sunlight, the sunlight is going to flatten out that red. Whereas if you put it, you know, you put a red object and you set a light coming from the extreme right, then that object is going to look differently. So I hope I'm explaining this correctly, you guys, like in as simple a way as I can. So I'm gonna let all this dry because this is like turning into a big puddly mess. And I think this is gonna be the last of my video unless you guys want me to do another video. But basically at this point, well, I might do another video because I am gonna come in and do some details. So I don't know. I'll see if there's enough that, you know, if there's enough of me working on it to do another video. But anyways, you guys, if you've watched all the way to the end, thank you so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.